Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Bonsoir, mes amis. Welcome to Game Over Montreal. I'm Andrew Berkshire, and I'm here with Conor Tomalty. And that sucked, Connor. That wasn't a fun game at all. Oh, I'm not hearing you coming through. Hold on one second. I'm going to re-add the Discord capture because gotta start with some kind of problem. Gotta be something. All right. So basically, the game was crap. Let's be honest here. I think we've got stuff to say about it, but it wasn't a game that everybody's excited to talk about, right? I think we can all agree on that. Hopefully this is working now. Just transition again. All right, test it out, Connor. Nope, nothing coming through. So it must not be going through Discord. I'm not sure what the issue is. I'm gonna test out one thing here. Where is it? See if I can get soundboard. That works. Oh.
Here.
Oh, there we go. Now I can hear you.
I figured it out. Yeah, apologies. I'm using a new webcam, and then like not 2 seconds before the stream started, it shut off. So I just switched to my computer's webcam, and then went into my settings and saw that it changed it to the old webcam from my microphone. So like technology is crazy, isn't it?
It's so fun to try to figure this stuff out, isn't it? Well,
Mhm.
your Montreal Canadiens lost 4-1 in a game that did not have much to write home about. I missed the first like 50 seconds of the game,
Best part of the game.
and yeah, best part of the game apparently. So unfortunate, but I think what I'm seeing a lot of frustration, and I totally get it from the fan base because we all want to see them finish this season with authority and prove that they belong where they are. But they're a team that is going to need some good fortune to make it into the playoffs. As we mentioned last show, they don't have a second line center. You know, like Caden Gooley just came back. That's a big plus, but playing with 7 defensemen tonight, a little bit discombobulated. But overall, I think in this specific game, they actually played very well. I saw a lot of people saying that they didn't. I think that they were just so completely outclassed by a Hurricanes team that really brought it tonight that this is the result. And I'm going to kind of go through a little bit on the stats sheet. But before I do, I should say we're going to condense tonight's show a little bit. We're going to do a little bit of a scattered recap, and then we'll take some questions from the chat if the chat has some folks in it. But I can see just the losses mounting recently live. It's not a great situation. Kay says there's an audio delay on my mic. So it's just that kind of night. So unfortunately, there's nothing I can do to fix the audio delay while we're live. If there is an audio delay, that sucks. I will
We're
try
having
to
like
figure it out.
it's like a mini Y2K going on. Like first it was the Habs
Right?
TSN stream that wasn't working, and then the scoreboard halfway through the game stopped working, and now the powers that be are not allowing a proper audio of like to just go through crisply this evening apparently, Andrew.
Yeah, it's everything's bad about this Friday night, unfortunately. From the broadcast to what's going on for us and to the Habs. But like I said, I think overall they play pretty well, but we'll get into that in a second. Before we do, we're going to condense it, talk a bit about the game, take some questions if we have some. But because of that, before I go too deep into this, I'm just going to show you all our ad for Inchu Bijou because they're a great partner for us. And frankly, we got to spread some love here because we got to support some small businesses here in our local communities as these tariffs are going to continue to hit hard. Make it really, really tough for a lot of people in this country. So check out Inchu Bijou. We are so excited to tell you about our new partner here at Game Over Montreal, a delightfully witchy goth and glam jewelry store making handcrafted art that varies from subtle silver to gold pieces to glamorous bespoke. Inchu Bijou is more than just a company. They've built a community through advocacy and a welcoming attitude that has made them an institution here in Montreal. Located in the historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, Inchu Bijou also runs seasonal themed markets called Maleficarum Market or Marché Maleficarum en français, where artisans from all over get together and showcase and sell their wares. Drop by 4000 Rue Saint-Ambroise, Suite 278, and say hi to Astrid and the Wicked team, or head to inchubijou.com and enhance your style. The next Maleficarum market will be on the weekend of February 8th and 9th. We'll see you there. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out. All right, folks, welcome back. We're going to talk about this game. So what I noticed from this one is I thought the Canadiens played really hard. I thought that they were outclassed, outmatched, outsystemed, but they were on it all game long. And to like illustrate what I mean, yes, they were wildly outshot. However, high danger chances in the game, 5-5 in all situations. At even strength, also tied. Expected goals at even strength actually favored the Canadiens. Now, yes, a lot of that came in the third period. However, the point is that they were able to get to that point because despite being under relentless pressure by a significantly better team, they didn't give the Hurricanes much in this. Like, they just flat out didn't. And Montembeault had to make some pretty good saves. But for the amount of puck control that the Hurricanes had, Connor, I don't think that they generated very many high-quality chances.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was one of the first things I noted when I was running down my notes for the game was just like I really like the idea or the game plan by Martin St. Louis to start the third line or to start the Gallagher, Anderson, and Jake Evans line, just to like really get like the boys who bring the fight out of everybody on that forward line to like really just start like giving it to them. Defensively, I thought they were really sharp. I just thought again the Hurricanes were a bit more defensively sound. When I was watching this game, a lot of the things that were coming to me was just like, yeah, it is like the analogy I sort of said to myself is it's when you play street hockey with your older brother and like, you're like, the dad or your parents will be like, "Come on, just let him score, like, 1 so he feels good." And we felt and you score that 1, you feel good, you're like, "Oh, this is gonna be a great game." And then, like, you just say the wrong thing, or you just chirp him a bit too much, and he turns right around and just figures it out and shows you why he is superior and why he's farther ahead of you. And, of course, the analogy being the Hurricanes are gonna probably are aiming to make a deep Stanley Cup playoff run and are trying to go to the cup, and the teams are really just trying to make the last dance or the
Yeah,
first dance.
it's two teams in such different situations, right? And in the regular season, you're not going to make this kind of like I guess it's not really making an excuse. It's kind of like explaining the situation, but you're not going to like in October you're not going to talk about these things as solidly as right now. The Carolina Hurricanes are a team that is in their cup window that has been for several years, that hasn't made it over the hump, but they're a team that is just so systemically tight. And what I noticed the most about them tonight was just how they were able to cover lanes. Like every time the Canadians had the puck trying to transition up the ice, they had the angle with not one but two players pinching it off. It was like there was constant pincer movements all over the ice so that no puck was getting cleanly through anywhere. So the Canadians couldn't adjust to what they were doing, obviously. I don't know if the adjustment might have been that they needed shorter passes, but I don't think the Canadians had the legs under them on the second half of a back-to-back to compete with the Carolina Hurricanes in a skating game either. It seemed like they were the slower team. So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't on what they wanted to do to move the puck up the ice. Like you don't really want to get in a dump and chase battle with the Hurricanes either. So what what options are you left with? And the Canadians just tried to kind of brute force it through for much of the night and like continue doing what they do to try to get chances. And they got a few, but Anderson was there when they got their like quasi decent chances, and most of their best chances they ended up missing the net, or Carolina was just there in time to close off the opportunity. And it's a frustrating game, but when you're against a team as good as Carolina at this stage in the season, when they're ramping up into the playoffs and you're just trying to kind of hold on to things, and I think there's a level of nerves as well with the Canadians because they're in this position where they just need to not be worse than the teams below them. They actually have a still an advantage, right? But that advantage can dwindle away fast. So they've got that for the first time. They're not just a bad team trying to get better. They're now trying to hold on to something, and it's a different feeling. So we got to remember these guys are human too. Uh, this is the hard part. Actually making good on it at the end of the year. It's the toughest part.
That's it. And I'm curious to like hear the post game conversations with a couple of the players and see if they're talking about the game yesterday against the Flyers and seeing if that's still a talking point in the room where it's like I know you have to take every game at a time. That's the cliche that a lot of athletes will throw out. But it's a situation where you look back at yesterday and you're like, if you could have stolen one on the road trip against the Flyers,
Yeah.
is it still, like, something that's a bit more of, like, poignant to look at and to turn to and be like, then maybe you feel a bit better going with the performance you had about against Carolina, and you say, like, a vastly superior team comparing Carolina and the Flyers, especially with both of their situations. You at least get to pat yourself on the back and say you had a good effort if you steal a win yesterday. But it's a different situation because it's a tough road trip. To your point that you said about the lanes, there was like it feels like for me when I watch the Habs, if there's a slump when it comes to scoring, a power play is so that much more exciting. And of course, Lane
Yes.
Hudson has been a huge factor in that. Patrick Laine is a huge factor in that. But I think like tonight, we had to remind ourselves as a fan base, hey, by the way, Carolina's the best penalty kill in the league. And they showed that. And they showed that so like soundly. Like when you talk about not getting shots towards the net, it everything was to the perimeter. There was nothing
Yep.
inside the slot that could have developed there for the Habs. It was truly just a game where like Lane Hudson dazzled again and was able to create some chances and somehow get the puck towards the net on a couple opportunities. When you look at it and you're just like, this is textbook how to play defense from the Carolina Hurricanes.
It is. And I noticed several times there were large sequences where the Hurricanes almost look like a school of fish. If you watch them, especially in the offensive zone, they're so in sync with each other that they almost all five move as a unit in the same way. It's like they just like kind of like read off of each other and react instantaneously. It's really weird. It's like they have a hive mind. And as much as I respect the hell out of the Carolina Hurricanes, I respect the hell out of how hard they play and like the the cost of playing the style that they do because it does cost a lot on your body. And I also like cheer for them to a certain extent for my bud Eric Tulsky, who's the GM, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for and think is an innovator in this sport. But at the same time, Carolina Hurricanes hockey is really tough to watch, Connor. Like I gotta be honest, like I respect everything about what they've done and what they've built, but I don't know if a team this good playing that way is good for the sport of hockey.
That's really interesting because, like, when you said like that, they're like a school of fish. I think specifically they're like the school of fish in Finding Nemo that is just mocking. What I don't remember what the dad's name is. I'm not gonna. You're a father yourself,
Marlin.
Andrew. Marley. Yeah, I was gonna say throw it to the dad to see like who. I'm sure you've seen Finding Nemo like 20 times in the past year. But yeah, like I think what was the term that was being thrown around a lot tonight? Was it wet blanket in just the sense of like
Yeah.
just like how boring it felt. Like you have a 3-1 lead. The most exciting or exhilarating point of the game was the third goal I found. Which, by the way, I generally thought Montembeau might have made that save when he was coming across, and I would have lost my mind if he did. But still, like that's the most exhilarating part. And then they sort of just kind of play like keep away. Like they didn't mount too many shots in the third. And I think that mostly had to do with the Canadians kind of like revitalizing themselves a little bit. But at the same time, like yeah, wet blanket was definitely the feeling tonight.
Yeah, 100%. We were talking earlier about like weighing your expectations and understanding the difference between two teams. And I saw Natalie in the chat was saying like she refuses to be upset about what's going on right now because like they're in the hunt. This is still better than what everyone expected at the beginning of the season, and I agree. I see Trizek in the chat saying the Habs have two personalities and they're both manic. I feel that. Claire and Outrage and MFM are here. Hello, everyone. Terry M says, "Same meet under the same circumstances. Another Montreal loss." Hey, listen, that's been like the default position of Game Over Montreal since we began it. So I'm still in, in a position where seeing the odd win is pretty exciting. I'll be honest with you. And at the same time, Trinka takes us through the other side of it and says, "Feel your feelings though, because fan comes from the word fanatic, and tempering your expectations is not the fan's natural temperament." I agree. I agree. It is natural to get emotional. And I think that's kind of the beauty of sports, right? Is that you get to be emotional about something that's not necessarily the most serious thing or like the most important thing. You can have that emotional collective experience, burn through it, and then move on to something else. It's just when it gets unhealthy. That's what you don't want.
Well, then I'll
But
pose this question, if I may pose a question.
go.
One thing that I think something that I've learned from therapy is that your emotions are valid, but it's your reaction that you can call into question. And
Yes.
so that's something that I kind of want to turn to you as well. Like, if your takeaway from this game is positive and you're optimistic and you're like, well, it shows that in a year's time, this team might be able to compete with the Hurricanes, or they might be able to foil and not be as frustrated down the stretch and find a way to get a puck into the back of the net and get through the shooting lanes. Or you might have a more pessimistic approach where you're like, this was our chance to make the playoffs and to give it a good college try and turn into a Muppet of some sort. So I'm curious, like, how do you react to this? What is the most, healthy way? And I pose this to the chat obviously as well. What's the most healthy way to, feel your feelings but also react to a game like this?
I don't know. I mean, I know
Besides,
what when I
besides
was a
coming to
kid,
game
my
over
dad had a
Montreal.
foam brick that he would throw.
Oh, phone brick. Oh, thank God.
Foam.
I heard phone book, and I was like, Andrew, I'm so sorry.
No, no, no.
I can't say yellow pages around Andrew. He starts shaking. It's a whole thing. Like, I don't want that.
Gonna get back to my dad and be like, "Why would you say that about me?" No, foam brick. I think it was like a green like foam that he would throw. That's what he got his anger out with. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. Emotional processing is complicated. And that's something I've learned as a parent is like trying to teach something that you don't even really understand. You have to learn it first. Uh, and what's the best way to do things as a fan? I feel like that definitely comes down to the person, right? I don't know if like blasting toxic shit online is going to help anybody, but getting some venting out in a safe space like this, I think helps people out, and you can kind of say how you feel, but we can go over it and kind of temper things a little bit as we go on, because I think was it Trinka was right that you do have to just let it out a little bit sometimes, but then you got to rein it in, right? You let it out, and then you look over the reality of it all, and you think, is this the biggest thing? So yeah, it sucks the Canadians are on a little losing streak right now when it should be the moment where everybody's like in and the hope is at the highest level. But at the same time, we've seen them go through this before now. They're going to come out the other side. Whether they make the playoffs this year, as much as it's something that would be super friggin' fun for all of us, it doesn't ultimately matter that much. So the fact that they're here is more important than making the playoffs, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that's something that, again, a reminder that coming into this year, the goal, I think, for a lot of people for the Habs was be middle of the pack to a degree and just improve on the season that you had last year with the steps that the first line took. And you're seeing a third line that's, come alive. Like, I think Christian Dvorak is somebody that I'm looking at a little bit, and I'm just like, oh, I've really liked your game as of late. Like, I've really liked. I think Andrew, you said it a couple of streams ago where you said like the Canadians don't have a 2C, but they have a bunch of guys who can play 3C on a
Yeah.
given team. And you look at this team and you're like, honestly, like a bunch of 3Cs like we saw tonight in the sense of like Dvorak and like the pace that he did pushing the puck up the ice and being able to go after it. And honestly, he did compete a little. I'm not a little bit. He was competing with a very fast Hurricanes team. So absolutely, I just kind of like look at this lineup and I'm like, it's a step forward. And I think that's something that we still need to highlight and continue to highlight and say it's a step forward, and that's a positive.
Yeah, 100%. I see another good comment on here from Trinka says that the Habs froze in the spotlight like a baby deer. And I think that that's partially true. Like we were talking earlier, it's a little bit of nerves right now. I think we saw a similar thing at the beginning of the year when they lost Line and Reinbacher in the preseason in one game, and it was like they had talked so much about being in the mix that that smackdown at the beginning of the year, it kind of made them sulk a little bit, and it seemed like they couldn't really get past it on a like emotional or psychological level to begin the year. And then eventually they did. Time passes, they figured it out. And since then they've been pretty darn good the rest of the season, really. So this is a learning experience for all of these players. It's really only a handful, a very small handful now that have even significant playoff experience. So all these players are taking steps at the same time together, learning as a group. And yeah, it's fun and it's also terrible. I saw somebody was saying that it would be easier to handle. I think it was Trizak was saying it would be easier if the Canadians were just like mid, but they oscillate between fantastic and god awful. And I agree that is kind of the frustrating part because you can see the games where they just turn it on and they look incredible. But I would say that the way to view that is that's who they can be. It's not who they're destined to be, but that's who they can be. But they're not good enough to do that consistently, right? They will be
Absolutely.
soon, though.
That's it. Absolutely. Like, and I think like we're still looking at the prospects who are going to be coming in next year. A healthy Rhinebacker at camp. I want to see if he makes opening day. Line A coming into the season without an injury. Seeing what the status of Doc might be and whether or not what that situation is going to be in the offseason as well. Engstrom in the AHL and how he's doing, and a bunch of other key players. Which, by the way, the Rocket have clinched tonight. If anybody hasn't pointed that out
Yes.
already, that's yeah, hey, we're not going to be at a loss for playoff hockey in Montreal. The Victoire are in. I know
Nope.
Laval is Laval, but still Laval is in. So I mean, it's not like we're going to be without hockey going forward, but we're in like Montreal. But I mean, it might not be the team that everybody wants. Is the only problem. Is that's it.
And the fact is, they still have a good chance. I know they've
Hmm.
got a tough game next one against the Panthers and Brad Marchand, and they've got the last game of the season is Carolina again, but they don't have the strongest schedule the rest of the way. So they've got a chance to make it in. The teams below them are frankly not great. The middle of the Eastern Conference is pretty weak this year, so they've got a decent chance. But let's take some questions from our stream chat here and talk to them. And also, I want to throw a couple ideas out there to begin because I think the Laval thing is something that we should talk about. And I also want to talk about an event happening tomorrow in Edmonton. If anybody that is watching here is local to Edmonton, we've got something happening in the Game Over Network. So before we go to the questions, though, I'm going to show you guys a little ad for Le Saint Motel, one of our partners. Looking to make awesome memories with your friends? Take some promotional pictures or videos for your business? Check out Le Saint Motel in Montreal's Sud-Ouest borough. It's an amazing selfie studio located in Montreal's historic Chateau Saint-Ambroise, right next to Inchu Bijou. It boasts 12 plus unique decors for you to enjoy and make memories with. Hop into their iconic heart-shaped ball pit or transport yourself back in time to Expo 67. Le Saint Motel can also come to you with mobile decor setups available to rent for events, including setup and takedown, or you can head to lesaintmotel.com right now for more details, or to check out their amazing decors that are always being updated. Now, let's get back to the show, but before you do, make sure you subscribe to Game Over Montreal, Game Over Network, and smash like on this video because it really helps us out. Welcome back to Game Over Montreal. I am Andrew Berkshire. He is Conor Tomalty, and we are here talking the Montreal Canadiens losing to the Carolina Hurricanes. We're taking your questions here in the stream chat, but before we do get to these questions, I just want to tell everyone that if you are local to Edmonton, we have a very special event coming up tomorrow for the Battle of Alberta. This is all Conrad Krausert's idea. They're going to have a little sit-in and record at first round in Edmonton. You can find the details on any of the Game Over social media, uh, I guess, pages, whatever you want to call it. We'll throw in a link in the stream chat as well, too, if we can. I don't know if it allows you to post links right now. It depends on the YouTube page settings, but Mod whipped up a wicked little preview image for it, and it's pretty damn cool. So you can go to first round tomorrow after the Oilers and Flames game and hang out with some of our amazing folks who host Game Over Edmonton and Game Over Calgary. It's gonna be really fun. We did something like this last year when we were still with SDPN. Yeah, it lets me post a link, and it was really fun. We had a bunch of people there show up, and we had a really good time. The audio quality recording in the bar was crap, but what can you do? It'll be better this time, I'm sure, because the folks who are setting it up aren't me. They're actual people who went to broadcast school, so they know what they're doing, like Conrad. All right, so The other thing I wanted to throw out there before we get to the questions is Connor mentioned the Laval Rocket have qualified for the playoffs. If the Canadians don't make it, I think it would be pretty fun to do like a Game Over Montreal meetup at a Laval Rocket game. And just like if anybody wants to go hang out at the game or even, I don't know, a pub near there or something, right? It hang out after. We don't have to do any show or anything. It would just be a meet and greet, hang out, let's chat some hockey, let's have a fun time because Rocket tickets, playoffs might be a little bit different, but Rocket tickets aren't that expensive either. So if you want to see some good hockey, that is a great opportunity. And you know what? The Victoire also, that would be damn fun, actually, a Victoire playoff game because they're probably going deep too.
So
I
here's
feel
the
like
thing.
we could really have fun.
One of my first uh picture this. Last year I started working for the Hockey News, being able to cover the Victoire, and I had covered all of, I think, like 2 or 3 regular season games because there was somebody who was ahead of me on the like depth chart, if you will. And out of nowhere, he was like, "Hey, I can't cover any of the playoffs," and I was like, "Oh, yeah, look, I'll gladly do it." And it was a disappointing playoff run. It was just like not able to score goals, not a lot of depth, key injuries, and a lot of players were talking about that. Excuse me. But it was a situation where like the atmosphere, especially with the fact that it went to like double or triple overtime twice, the atmosphere did not die down. The crowd does not die down. So if you can grab a Victoire ticket for the playoffs, I recommend you. I cannot recommend enough that you do that.
I think it'd be a great idea. I think it'd be extremely fun to have a meetup at a Victoire game. The atmosphere is crazy, and I feel like sorry, there's just something about women's hockey that hits a little bit different. There's a different atmosphere. It's just like I don't know. It's like more camaraderie. I don't know. It's a
Absolutely.
cool thing to experience, and I think it lends itself well to a meetup. Of our specific group. All right, let's get some questions here. I see Natalie says she doesn't buy into the strength of schedule thing. We can win any game, but we're more likely to lose the easy games. That is how it kind of always seems to work out, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I was looking at everything tonight, and I was just sort of just like, am I am I crazy? Just a little bit, in the sense of like, am I overthinking like how much criticization or criticism I'm throwing at this team in general? And I was just like, maybe I am, because like the bar and the expectations that you set, especially when you're just in the uh echo chamber that is Montreal media, it, it's a lot that you sort of place on a team like this. And I think just tonight, yeah, sorry, I'm just seeing the chat right now as well as blowing up. I bring up PWHS stuff, and now I'm seeing nothing but Victoire praise, which I'm here for. Kay asked a cool question that I don't know if we touched enough upon it tonight, but Caden Gooley, question mark.
I don't know how he's back in the lineup already. He looked all right to my eye. I haven't checked the stats, but I am so glad. Oh, geez, he was the top defenseman tonight.
Not surprised.
Yeah,
Really not surprised. I think I had the same thought as you, Andrew. I really didn't know why he was back in the lineup so soon. I'm not saying that it was a rush job. Like, I'm pretty sure they probably went to Caden and were like, "Hey, how you feeling?" And he was like, "I could go." And they were like, "Cool, get ready." Like, I think it was sort of that sort of situation. I don't think I just like when I saw laceration, I was like, "That's a big word." Like, that's a well, not just that. That's a big word. That's a big injury. Like
yeah,
he like 2 months ago, you had surgery on this leg, and now they're thrusting you back out there. Like, it was worrisome for me, given the history that the Habs have had in recent seasons when it comes to treating injuries. But at the same time, they did redefine or refine or retool, I should say, the training staff itself. And with Caden, like, again, I I was baffled. I was really surprised to see him out so quickly. I genuinely thought that we weren't going to see Caden Gooley for the rest of the season. Like, generally, that was a thought I had. But he, outside of like the first goal given up, which I don't really think was his fault, it was really just a bad bounce. He looked sharp. It was some sound defense, which the Habs have been needing as of late.
yeah. And the fact is, they really needed Caden Gould. Like
Hmm.
defensively, things have been tough without him. I think the Hudson Struble pairing has been a breath of fresh air, but the other two pairings have really struggled at times. Matheson had some fantastic games, but him and Carrier do not have the same chemistry that Gouli and Carrier do. So it's been a bit of a tough slide. I think you've seen Carrier's numbers drop off with Matheson. He's a lot harder to cover for than Gouli is. I see Trinket says, is that not an indictment of our defenseman that Gouli coming back is immediately being the top defenseman? I mean, no, a single game is not that much to write home about. And it's not like he was the best player in the game or like the best defenseman overall. Like Lane Hudson was still better tonight. It's just that Caden Gouli had the best like expected goal differential. That's what I saw. And that is impressive to me because Caden Gouli is just coming back. It's not surprising that Caden Gouli himself is at the top. I mean, he's usually around there. I know that people think that his underlying numbers are not good, but if you actually parse them for like the competition that he faces using things like evolving hockey's metrics, he's consistently at the top of the D-core for the Canadiens and has been since he was a rookie. Like as much as Mike Matheson plays the most minutes, Caden Gouli has been the top defenseman on this team for the last 2 years. So I think it's just really important that he's back. And I saw somebody questioned earlier, who comes out, or do you continue to go 11-7? That was from MFM. What would you do, Connor?
Well, that was it. Like sorry, my old webcam just fell off my whiteboard here. I'm going to take that down. That was one of the things I was wondering about a little bit. I was like, because there was talk when Caden Gouli was back at practice in a proper excuse me, like in a full practice, full contact jersey, who comes out? And people were like, probably Struble. And then other people were saying, like myself, no, he works so well with Hudson. And then so it kind of came down to you can't take out Savard because even though like his age is showing, he's a veteran. He blocks shots as he did tonight really well on the penalty kill. So then you would turn to a guy like Jack Eye, and you with Jack Eye, I look at him and I kind of go, it's that point in the season where if he had to miss a game because we are just trying something out, I think he's mature enough to understand that. But it sucks because like Jack Guy's the type of guy that he's one of those guys where you kind of think you might need him in a game like tonight with the Hurricanes where it did get physical. You want a body like Jack Guy out there because when it comes to somebody that's going to go into the corner, you don't want to just rely on say Josh Anderson to do that. Or you don't want a guy like I'm trying to like think of a name real quick. Like you don't want like Slap being in the corner and doing that. You want Jack Eye being thrown in there so that there's sort of that matching of physicality a little bit at the same time. But I would look at him and honestly, he's probably the name I would throw out there, Arbor Jack Eye. I don't know about you though, Andrew.
Yeah, I know. I saw that like Jack I had that awful moment tonight where he bit on a little head fake and went for a hit, and I think it was the third goal that he caused. But overall, I just think people are so hard on Jack Eye when he makes a mistake. And he's worked really hard to become a much better all around player. But in moments like tonight, where they go with 7 defensemen and he's the one who gets shifted down and plays the least, he only played like just under 4 minutes tonight in this game, which I think is really silly. I think he gets caught and makes things harder for himself by trying to stand out. And that's where that hit comes in. He makes those bad decisions sometimes. But overall, it has to be David Savard that comes in. I know it's like there's a left-right balance and everything, and they want Savard for the penalty kill, but the guy is on such a struggle bus right now. Even if you sell it for him that it's resting him for the playoffs, and maybe you have to bring him in if they make it, or like he cycles in down the stretch here, he's not giving enough for me to keep a roster spot over somebody who's actually contributing quite a bit more. And I think for Xhekaj also, these games are important. Even if he messes up like tonight, even if he takes a bad penalty, these games are important for the future for him for understanding how to handle these moments when it actually matters. So I'd like to see him stay in the lineup.
That's it. With Savard, it was that sort of situation where, like, I thought his veteran presence is what earns him the right to sort of stay in the lineup. But at the same time, I think you touched upon it. If there's a facade that you as a coaching staff will put forward to the public and also sort of tell your veteran defenseman, it's that hey, on a night where you're doing a back-to-back and travel is involved, maybe you take a seat for the night. Maybe you just wear a nice suit and tie, get your hair all done well, and you just sort of like give your 2 cents afterwards, and you just be a really strong teammate on the bench. It's one of those situations where it's like, yeah, he blocks shots, like I've pointed out, but yeah, he hasn't looked good. Like it's been really a situation where like he just hasn't looked good. And with Arbor Jackey's like the goal that was the third goal, what I'll commend him for is he was, I think, alone going from the neutral zone into the offensive zone trying to generate something. And I think with a bit more tenure, with a bit more experience, I think he'll make the right idea, which is to just sort of either dump it or get the puck towards the net in a situation where he can get back to his position, and you don't have the 2-on-1 going back the other way with the speed that Carolina has. But again, like he's so young, and he's still going to have to sort of learn and recognize, and that takes a lot more time at that level as well.
100%. And Outrage in the chat mentions that the decor at the moment is a house of cards. And that's true. And I think that's kind of the difficult thing of like teams like the Canadiens where they are in this moment. A lot of things are going right. A lot of pieces are in place, but there's also some fairly large pieces that are not in place. Like I feel like we're mentioning this more and more, but like Ivan Demidov is not here yet. He's going to be next year most likely. David Reinbacher, I know that people see Matvey Michkov and they get really upset about that pick, but that doesn't mean that he's not a big part of the future of this team. He may not be the elite goal scorer that everybody wants, and I totally understand the frustration with that, but he's going to be a really damn good defenseman. And like from the people that I talk to, the low bar for Reinbacher is right side Caden Gooley. That's not bad. It maybe isn't the player that you want at 5th overall, but having 2 Caden Gouleys and one on each side of the ice sounds pretty damn good for a team that really needs something on the defensive side of the ice. So
Yeah.
you add that and then Hudson continuing to get better, things will slot into place. But right now it is 100% a house of cards.
Yeah, what happens when Lane Hudson actually, for lack of a better term, finds the scoring touch in the sense of like he's
Right?
continuously being able to put the puck in the back of the net just himself? Excuse me. And then looking at Reinbacher, I work at a retail store in LaSalle, and a lot of the guys that I work with are basketball and football fans. They're not really into hockey, and so they sort of like turn to me all doe-eyed, and they're like, "Connor, tell us about the Canadians." And I tell them about the Canadians, and then I have to comfort them when I tell them that we're not winning. But at the same time, one of the things that I will bring up when it comes to Reinbacher and the conversation with Reinbacher, some people are worried about injuries with Reinbacher because of the history that he's shown so early on. But I actually like the way he takes care of his body. I wrote something before the season started in the summer because he was shown like doing these crazy skating drills when he was practicing, and he was practicing with some NHLers during the off season, and it was like full crossover, like past the ice to a backward shuffle, like skate, get over to the ice, and then just fully book it, pick up the puck. Like he was just doing stuff where you're like, didn't this guy just come off of like tearing his ACL or whatever it was? Like he had like a significant knee injury. Like if I like pull a muscle in my back, I don't get up for like a day. This guy was like, let me pop maybe some Tylenol and let me get back out on the ice. In the sense of like he's aware of how his knee is. He was said, I think in the interview, he was like, I want to make the opening day roster. That was the big thing. People were sort of surprised. They thought, okay, you need a year in the AHL because you're just coming from, the European League. But at the same time, like I'm here to see how he turns, like how he does first of all with his playoff run, and then afterwards how he does coming into the offseason and training camp as well, how he's feeling, if he puts on some weight to just bulk up a bit more, or if he's focusing more on the speed aspect. I'm really curious with Ryan Backer to see what he deems to be the step forward for him in his career and his development as well. Oh, Andrew, your mic.
Sorry, I had it muted because I was making noise. Sorry. There's a lot to look forward to in Laval. I mean, even looking at tonight, like Florian Jacquet is at 19 goals. Florian Jacquet? Like nobody expected that. Like I know that people expected him to be like eventually a guy that might push for a 4th line spot in the NHL. Maybe, but dude's got 30 points in 59 games. as a rookie
Yeah.
in the American Hockey League and is a menace.
Yes. Stu Cowan said something at the beginning of the year where it was like, "Don't be surprised if Florian Jackeye." I mean, now I don't. It's not something that could happen. But don't be surprised if Florian Jackeye becomes like an extra forward down the stretch for the Habs. I think a lot more people are anticipating them not pushing for a playoff spot and sort of doing like, to use the baseball term, sort of like quote unquote September call ups, but like in April, which is
Yep.
just, let's let the rookies like sign. Let's see what they do. Let's see how they play. If it was that was the situation, I wouldn't be surprised to see Florian Jackeye right now in the NHL, like on the like lower lines, just trying to get his feet wet and see like how he performs.
Yeah, guys like that, Jared Davidson even is a guy that 100% could step into a fourth line in an NHL team probably right now and piss off a lot of players. Again, another guy, another 20-goal scorer for the Rocket, like that's a team that has some impressive ability to outscore teams. And I know that Sean Farrell has been on fire lately, and I know that people are a little bit disappointed with Philip Meshar's season, but there's a lot to look forward to in that group. And if the Canadians don't make it, I assume that they papered Joshua Waugh down as well. So there's a lot of talent down there.
That's it. I think one of the acquisitions I really liked was Barry Boulet in the offseason, just because of the fact that like Quebec guy, and the big thing that he was really talking about was, hey, I've been in Tampa Bay / Syracuse for the past couple of years, having to do the trek of like back and forth whenever they need me called up to the NHL. Whereas like we haven't seen Barry Boulet as a Habs since the start of the year. I think he played like
Mhm.
the first couple games with the Habs before going down to the Rocket. But like a guy like him who showcases great speed, but also has sort of been there enough to tell guys like Florian and to like feed off of them and to help them improve their game and feel that confidence. Guys like him are great for the dressing room, especially like him just being a local guy or like local enough being Quebecois that he could be like, hey, I know a place we can go. Hey, my
Yep.
family's house is down the way. Hey, you should meet like just somebody who is familiar with the culture and can make sure that people who are playing Laval for right now are familiar with it as well.
Yeah, it's as simple as like teaching the guys from outside of Quebec how to order a Portuguese chicken, or like it's a little stuff ingratiating you into the culture. That stuff does matter. And that's why, as much as there's so much talk about like Montreal always being obsessed with bringing in Quebecois players or whatever, which frankly they don't do that much. It's really not that much. That's not that much of their purview, especially from the draft. They don't draft very many Quebecois players, even though every single mock draft, every single year from all the like major outlets are like, oh, who's Montreal going to pick? The French guy who's in that range. And you're like, as if they don't put any effort in whatsoever and just pick a French guy every year. But every team tries to find players local to them. The Ottawa Senators are actually incredibly successful at acquiring players from the Ottawa Valley. It's a big thing for them to get people to stay, for one, but also it matters to have some of that local representation, local flavor on your team. It helps get fans behind you, and it creates something for the rest of the team. I think it's a really great point Connor brought up there. All right, let's close it out, Connor. I'm just going to see if there's one last comment to close us out here. I did want to throw Kay under the bus question quickly, because she was talking about Caden Gooley, and she said that we missed that very active strong stick, and I gotta say, Kay, calm it down. That's enough. That's enough innuendo for the night.
I
Settle
don't.
down.
No comment. No comment from me.
All right, folks. This has been Game Over Montreal. I'm Andrew Berkshire. He's Conor Tomalty, and we'll be back for the next one, which is Sunday. I think Marc Dumont is going to host for an afternoon game against the Florida Panthers and their newest asshole, Brad Marchand, to add to all the other assholes on that team. I'm sure it'll be a fun one, and there won't be any shenanigans whatsoever. We'll see you then.